Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental illnesses to encourage you to strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleone Crawford. Welcome to Resilient Minds 365, where we discuss the resilient stories of entrepreneurs, professionals, and students with mental health challenges to encourage you to thrive, strive, thrive, and live in abundance. I'm your host, Cleone Crawford. So, guys, today we have a special guest with us. As you know, all of our guests are special, but we have a very, very special guest with us today. Her name is Rebecca Mason. Who is Rebecca Mason? Well, Rebecca has been writing songs since she learned to carry a note at the age of 4. Ever since then, music has been her second language and the only constant in her life. She would sit for hours in front of her Sony tape deck. Do you remember those? Recording songs a cappella until she realized, having begun her formal music training on the violin, that she could learn an instrument to accompany herself. She began teaching herself guitar, then piano, all in service of the cathartic songwriting that helped her make sense of a churning world. Rebecca is driven by a need to understand life's heartbeat, transforming ineffable experiences and vulnerable emotions into sound. With that said, I now present to you Rebecca Mason. Rebecca, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So, Rebecca, tell us more about your profession. What do you do? What's your 9 to 5? Pretty much, what do you do for a living?
It's a complicated question. I'm a realtor. That's my main income, but I do it to support my music. So I teach music 4 days a week, 4 afternoons a week, and then I also have a band, our Mason, which is kind of featured in the film that I did with John Flatman. So yeah, essentially it's like, what does my day look like? It changes all the time depending on what needs to be done. Sometimes I'm sitting there scheduling music lessons. Right now I'm planning an end of year show at the Herman's Jazz Club for my students at the end of the year, and also planning for the release of this film. But I'm also teaching and, setting up appointments as a realtor as well. So yeah, and then also I just got back from a trip to Jordan River to record 2 singles with my band, Our Mason, which is really my favorite part because that's the writing and that's my healing. So when all the other stuff is kind of in service to that, and so yeah, that was a really rad week. And so yeah, anyway, so it's always changing, and I love it. I can't believe how lucky I am to be able to do all of that stuff, but it's a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tell us more about this film that's coming up. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so basically, it's like, where do I start? It started basically when I was between bands, and I didn't really know what I was doing with my music, and I'd kind of come to a standstill and was going through a lot of kind of mental health um, crises, as I do when I stop creating. I don't know what comes first. And then a friend of mine, suggested this place in the country. It's a beautiful barn. Come and, he's like, just keep writing. Why don't you turn the music that you've been writing into something? And so I was playing with a guitar player at the time, and yeah, we just basically, long story short, we decided to work on an EP, and the songs had already been written, but and then when we got to start recording at the barn house in Qualicum, I was just so captivated by the space and the people that I was working with and the support of everybody on the team that was working with me, that I actually got John Flatman to start filming everything that we were doing.
Cool.
So yeah, so we started to, a lot of it was getting filmed, and then the conversation of should we turn this into a documentary? This is just such an important experience. The pandemic started hitting. I had a baby. I went through a whole other 3 months basically of pretty bad depression kind of stuff, and and once the album was finished, I started cracking down into interviewing other people in the Victoria music scene who use similar music and art in similar ways to sort of find their healing. And so the conversations kind of just kept rolling, and it was just a really beautiful project. You know, it was, I say in the film, the EP was just supposed to take a few weekends. We're like, oh, we'll just get this out there and we'll be done and it'll be finished. And then it didn't just turn into a full EP, but it turned into 2 years, and then 3 years with the film, and then it's been been even longer than that now. We're not releasing it until next Friday. So it's like I'm about to give birth. It's all gonna happen. But
Mhm.
it was, yeah, it's just been so anyways, that's basically the film, is just a conversation about, why am I doing this? I think a lot of that 2 year span while I was working on it, there's a lot of times you kind of ask yourself, like, why am I bothering to do this? They're taking time away from your family, and it's not like a pity thing. It's not like, it's just more like I have to do this. But why am I sacrificing so much to do it? And you realize as you're going through it just the significance of doing that. And that question for me has been really, really significant. And I think for the people that we spoke with, I was able to surround myself in a community of people that were like-minded. It's not like that for everybody, but um, yeah, it's there's one woman actually that I wish I had interviewed. Her name's Louise Rose, and apparently John Flatman had a conversation with her after the film was over, and she's a local jazz singer in Victoria, and she taught me a little bit of voice years ago, and I guess John had asked her, or telling her about the film, and I could just see her. She just was like, music is it. It's everything. And she's so passionate. And you can see when you start having the conversation, you see people's eyes light up and they're like, no, it really is. These moments that I've had with it, it's like this little flickering flame that just keeps coming back, and you're constantly getting inspired and healed and motivated through
Mhm.
it. It's not just music, but it's whatever your art form is. So anyways, yeah, that's basically what the film is.
Cool. That's exciting. So how can people watch your film?
So it'll be out. Well, we still have. I think there might be a ticket or two left for our release, so they could come and watch it there. It's on. You can get tickets on my website, and then also it'll just be up on YouTube for now. Potentially distributing it in other places, but for now, it's just YouTube. I think for because music is still my focal point. I'm
Mhm.
not putting like a lot of time and effort into kind of working on the craft of filmmaking, but it was just an important story that I had to tell. So anyways, I think I'm just going to leave it there on YouTube, and people can easily watch it for free.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So with that said, we are going to move into the mental health piece of of this interview to find out more about your story. So tell us, what is your mental health diagnosis and when were you diagnosed?
um I was diagnosed in I think it was 2008, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around there. And I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and minor agoraphobia, which was a surprise to me. If you
Agoraphobia? What is that?
if you don't know what that is, that's just the fear of leaving your house, basically.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So, yeah, it's been quite a few years since I had that diagnosis. So I'm actually curious because I know mental health is so changing, and so I'm have been able to get hold of psychologists lately, but I want to know what the diagnosis is now, because I think it's shifted, but maybe it
Mm.
hasn't, you know. So I still struggle. I call it the SADs. They can hit pretty hard, and I still have panic attacks. I still have anxiety is the biggest one. That's kind of just always looming. But like the panic attacks are the things that they'll hit, and I can't properly function anymore.
Right.
And when I say anymore, it can happen like I'll be teaching a lesson, and then I'll just say, I need to go get you a piece of paper. This happened the other day, and went into my daughter's room, and I just stood there in front of her desk and thinking, okay, I'm getting a piece of paper, but all I could do was like hyperventilate and have my panic attack. And who knows, why those hit. But so anyways, yeah, so that's kind of me not being able, like in that moment, not being able to do anything. But yeah, so that's kind of my daily struggle.
Okay. Okay. So tell us more about your mental health story of resilience. What did you have to do when when you yes, your mental health story of resilience. How did you come what did you have to go through? Like just tell us about your story about, the different experiences that you've had with your anxiety and how you were actually to be resilient despite that.
Yeah, the overcoming. I initially the overcoming, when I got the diagnosis and when I was going through that, that was I call it the big breakdown, because um I had to leave work, and I went on disability leave, and then I had to start. I was in school at UVic, and I had to quit that for a while. So for 3 months, it was basically just, yeah, like in my house. Friends had to drive me places. I was seeing a counselor and psychiatrist and psychologist, uh, you know, almost every day, just to try to sort out what was going on. I see now with the stigma that's it's tough, because when you're going through something like that, even though that was, I guess like 15 years ago now, doesn't feel like that long ago. But even then, there's a lot of stigma around counseling or anything like that. Like, you just didn't talk about it like you did now. And I
Mm-hmm.
think my fear of that, and the reality of what the world was, mixed with my fear of medication at the time, really held me back. So for about a year, I didn't take any medication. I didn't do anything, just because I was so afraid of it. So I was calling it, like, I'm just going to be strong in this, and I'm just going to, sort this out with counseling and exercise. But it took a lot longer. The good thing about it is I did do a lot of hard work, and I did, like, I did a lot of work to get down to like the crux of what the issue was. So I was able to get through that. But in a lot of ways, it's hitting me again now. So the question of how to, overcome in this, like, kind of another turn in my life is coming up again. So see how I get through it this time.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And so tell me, what did you have to do to overcome or bounce back from your low points? List all the resources.
Yeah, I think like, obviously music and writing specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and running has been a big thing too. I started running marathons, and then, yeah, and then the usual, well, friendships have been huge, and also just, yeah, counselors, psychiatrists at the time, psychologists, doctors. Um, those
Okay,
those
cool. So what are three things you wish you had available when you were at your lowest point?
One thing is medication. I wish that I wasn't so afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, what's another thing? I feel like these questions came up before, and I don't remember what I said. Um, what else do I wish was available? Um, I think at the time, as much as I say I used music, I did, but I didn't have the same connection with it because it hadn't actually brought me through in the same way. So I wish my
Mm-hmm.
relationship with music was a bit better at the time. Um, so yeah, I think that would have helped me. I use classical music a lot now as just a calming piece. Sometimes writing is actually too jagged to actually use, depending on where I'm at in my process. And classical music is a huge calming piece. So I wish that I was more advanced in my abilities with classical music 15 years ago, and I think that would have really helped a lot of little moments.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
All right. And so, what words of hope would you give to our listeners? What would you tell them if they were going through a mental health challenge and they were going through what you went through? What would you tell them?
Oh, I would say to focus on the most beautiful parts of life. I think um, that's, among all of the things call it music or running or friendships or whatever. I look out my window and I see the light shining through the trees, and I can get lost in moments like that. Watching your little boy smile, and um, sitting by the ocean and smelling the salt. It sounds like they're just small things, but it's probably a lot of small things that have caused it, even though there's often a big traumatic experience as well. I think that often we are, yeah, it's surprising how much those little things can heal or break you. So yeah, I think focusing on the small parts of beauty in the world has been huge for me, and finding the bits that you love. I spent, I think, maybe like a year or two just constantly pointing out happy feeling. It sounds so dumb, but like, I'd be like, okay, that the book sitting under the chair that should be put away, that's not a good feeling. The look of the piano keys that are nice and clean and they're just sitting out in the sun, that's a good feeling. And believe it or not, I didn't understand good and bad feelings for quite a while. I didn't
Oh,
understand the mix. Like they were all just kind of clouded by anxiety. And now I can point out, like, I like that, I like that, I don't like that. There's a lot of confusion in mental health issues. And I think organizing your thoughts and what you love and don't love is a really, really important part of it.
okay, cool. So now we are going to take a switch in the interview, and we are going to talk about the music therapy part of this interview. Usually, if I had my background, you would see a book,
Okay.
and the book is called it's my book that I wrote, which is called The Music of My Life. So where I talk about my experience between bipolar and music therapy. So with that said, what type of music do you like?
Uh, it's like asking what my favorite color is. It's like, well, to wear or to look at. So, my favorite music to play might actually be classical music. My favorite music to write is probably is like an indie rock pop kind of style with a lot of like sensuality and that kind of thing. Um, and I think my favorite music to listen to is just kind of a combination of that. I think my favorite part about music is the intimacy and the small moments, just like I was talking about. That's been really healing for me. So
Mhm.
watching looking at classical music and watching the notes move, like Eric Satie is a he's a, I don't know, he's a composer, and he one of his Nueciens, I think you pronounce it. There's no bars and there's no bar lines and there's no time signature. And so throughout the music, he'll say things like with intimacy or with a jagged approach or let loose the, and so he kind of breaks free of all the like boundaries of music, if even there are any. And to me, that's just such an intimate way of writing, because you're connecting with just the sounds. You're forgetting that this is a piano. You're forgetting that, music has rules, and you're just playing it and listening to it and experiencing it for yourself. And I think that music ought to be like that all the time. I mean, I know that you have to kind of live within in boundaries, but so anyways, yeah, I guess whether it's indie pop like Lana Del Rey or Eric Satie, or Beethoven or Angus and Julia Stone, if there's an intimacy to it, then that's my favorite.
Okay. So if you were to think of a song that best describes your journey, what would it be and why?
Oh my God. Oh man, I wish I had thought of that. I think that these questions came out before, and I wish I remember what I wrote. Oh man, that's such a hard question. Give me a second.
No
um,
problem.
mm,
I think you said Lana Del Rey. I love to escape style music too, like Lana Del Rey. No. Rolling like a Rolling Stone.
oh, Bob Dylan, like Rolling
Lynn.
Stone. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Ah,
Yeah, that's a great one. Oh, I love that song. Totally. Oh yeah,
okay.
good answer, me.
Okay, tell me why. Tell me why. I'd love to know why.
Oh, it's so free and yet like sad at the same time. I
Mhm.
just love the analogy and the metaphor of like, you know, because a lot of times as a writer you feel lonely because you have to sit there in your thoughts and explore them, and your friend is the paper. And that's a hard thing to do, and I find myself sitting in my car writing and crying a lot. It's just what I do. But so you feel there's a loneliness to it, but there's this beauty of just being like this stone that's rolling down this hill, and it doesn't even matter where you're going, or you know where you came from, because you're free and you're just rolling around, and I just love it. And it's true, and I think that signifies not just right now, but yeah, my whole life. Really, it's a beautiful song. I should cover it.
Yeah, definitely do it. Awesome. Okay, so how can we stay in touch with you? What are your social media handles?
So yeah, so our Mason Music on Instagram is the main one to find. And then I also have a YouTube channel at r dot Mason. And then I also have I've got Twitter, and then I've got a Facebook page as well. I never go on Twitter, but and then I've also got my website as well, which is Our Mason Music, and that's got all the updates. I've got a tour coming up in September on Vancouver Island here, so yeah, the dates for that will be listed there soon, so you can find me there. And we'll be releasing a song called "Peace I Live Here Now," which is basically everything that we're talking about right now in a song. And that'll be released hopefully in the fall, so you can look it up on Spotify. I'm on Spotify and iTunes and all those streaming services as well. My most recent album, the album that What's the Point, the film, is about talks, or is basically the making of the EP that we did, Rain's Too Loud for TV, and that's up on Spotify and YouTube, and or well, YouTube too, but iTunes and all the streaming services that can shake stick at.
Okay, cool. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. So, with that said, I appreciate you coming on to the show and sharing your story with us. It's definitely been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, and to all your resilient minds out there, until next time, please subscribe to us on all our platforms, and don't forget to rate the show and leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. Also, join the community of resilient minds and sign up for our monthly newsletter at cleonycrawford.com. Be sure to grab a copy of my book, The Music of My Life, on all Amazon marketplaces to get to know me better. And if you can think of If you can think of one person that will receive value from today's show or connect with Rebecca's testimonial, please share it with them. Feel free to take a screenshot of this week's episode of the podcast and tag us on Instagram. You can tag myself at Only Cleone or Resilient Minds 365 and today's guest at R.Mason. Correct?
Yeah, R
Music.
Mason, R.Mason Music. Yeah.
Right, perfect. R.Mason Music. And remember, mental health is not a death sentence. Despite your illness, you can strive, thrive, and live a life of abundance. Until next time, I'm Cleone Crawford, and I'm signing off.